name's Joe Hudson. I'm very grateful recovered alcoholic. And, my sponsor isn't here, so I'm not going to let the truth get in the way of a great story. All right, guys. No, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about Brian telling him about, keeping your mouth shut and at the, thanks, Chris, I'll mention that. I was sitting at the men's meeting and they definitely taught me how to shut up, and I learned a valuable lesson there. And some of them, what I've found in Alcoholics Anonymous is the people I don't like when I first came in here are the ones that have shown me the way and showed me, because when you come into Alcoholics Anonymous, there's usually there's cool guys and then there's the uncool guys. The cool guys carry that little blue book with them, and they talk about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then you got the cool people who are talking about what they did, when they're drinking and all that stuff. And I always wanted to be like them. Those guys carrying the big books, I didn't want to be like them. Chapter 5 of the big book tells me I'm supposed to tell in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I grew up in Newport Richey, Florida, to two loving parents who are the greatest people in the world. My mom made those cakes on kind of I got to make amends to her later. That's the best way of putting it. I called her up and I said, "Oh, Mom, do you have that recipe for these cakes? I got to make them for tonight." And she was like, "Oh, well, you can, it's easier if I just make it." Right? So I was like, "All right, yeah, all right." So then I said to her, I go, "Well, how many people does that feed?" Right? And she goes, "About 30. She's like, then I was waiting for her, and she goes, Why? How many are there? I said, "Oh, about 100. She goes, "I'll make 2 then." I said, "Great." So I definitely got to make amends to her later. I owe that lady literally my life, and she loves me today. But, I grew up in this family that was absolutely wonderful. I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters. And so I always thought that I was the least liked in my family. My older brother, he's the oldest, so he's going to be the favorite. Then my younger sister, who's a middle child, she's the firstborn daughter, so she's obviously daddy's girl. And then my sister's the youngest, and then that puts Joe Hudson, just out of place. And what I've always done my whole life that I never understood, I felt like I missed a class on life. I felt like one day in school, while everybody was, I got there late to a meeting that everybody learned how to live life. And so I walked around this thing called life, judging your outsides by my insides. I saw them guys in middle school that were hip, slick, and cool talking to girls and stuff, and I was like, I'm not like that. I'm scared of girls, I'm scared of everything, and I don't understand, and I'm consumed by self. I assure you, I am my favorite person in the whole wide world. So my brother takes me out, I'm in middle school, and I'm like 12 years old, and my brother takes me out, he gives me a bottle of some sweet dessert wine, and he said, "Have fun tonight." He was a senior, we were going out with all his buddies. It was the first time I was ever going to go out with my brother, with older crowds, so I was like, all right. So I took this drink, and it was absolutely awful. That burning sensation was terrible, but about 15 minutes later, something magical happened, and I was able to talk to those senior girls, and they were laughing at what I said, and I felt like I had arrived. I heard it explained so many times. I believe right there I made a decision on the first 3 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous before I even came in here. I admit I was powerless over alcohol. I loved the stuff. My life was unmanageable without it. I decided to turn my will and life over to the care of alcohol as I understood it, and so it returned me to sanity, what I thought was sane behavior, what I thought was normal, and allowed me to function in this world. And I went to a different high school than a middle school, and I didn't know anybody, and my brother hooked me up with some people there, and I went out, and I was a freshman, and we went out, we bought a case of beer. I drank 18, the other guy got 6, we split a case. He was on the floor, and I was running around like a wild man. And all of a sudden, I was the freshman kid who could drink a lot. And that was like, when you're like 14, 15 years old and you're called an alcoholic, that's like a badge of honor. Then when you get to be about 22, 23, and you failed out of 4 colleges, and they're like, you're an alcoholic. You're like, no. So I was I went through high school making good grades. I was decent in school, and I had an ability to take tests very well and not do a whole lot of work, so I got by on that. And I was able to play sports too, and I played basketball and golf. And senior year, I was Pasco County Player of the Year in golf. Not to say that, I'm just going to tell you where alcohol took me, and I was really, it was great. And I had, at that time, I couldn't go a week without drinking. At that time, I had discovered my second true love. My first was me. The second was Mad Dog 2020. That stuff, never seen a grape in its life. But I tell you what, the name of this group's the Fourth Dimension Group. I was rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence with that stuff. A bottle and a half, and it was great. And at this time, though, I started getting the jitters a lot. And when we were playing golf, I'd have to take a few slugs just to calm my nerves down. And I didn't understand it, so I don't know, I always thought I did something to deserve that. I always thought I was entitled to stuff, and what happened, I don't know how, I was thinking about this probably a year ago, was I got accepted to Florida State, and I have no idea how. I never applied. Right? So my parents must have known that I wasn't going to amount to anything. I don't do anything. My mom would say, Joe, take out the trash. And at 7:30 in the morning, when I didn't do it, she'd be running outside in her pajamas, running down, trying to get the garbage man. I was never accountable for stuff. My wife still complains about it now because I leave clothes on the floor, waiting to be picked up for me. I have that sense of entitlement that still troubles me today. And so I get into Florida State, and I was able to try out for the golf team there. But they had some strict rules that I didn't really like. It was like run 6 miles a day. You have to go practice, and I wasn't into that. And at the time, Florida State was the #1 party school in the country. And I went up there a few spring breaks, and, when you're 17 and when you see spring break at Florida State, it's absolutely unbelievable. The girls are just magnificent. And the guys are, they're like me. So I was like, this is phenomenal. And so I decided right there that I was going to single-handedly try and keep Florida State the #1 party school in the country. My days went like this. Thursday was a great night to go out. It was like a big college night to go out. So I'd go out Thursday. Friday was all my friends came into town for football games. So we had to go out then. Saturday was game day. You had to tailgate then. Sunday, NFL football. You had to drink then. Well, Monday night football, you had to drink then. Tuesday was another great night to go out. You drink again. And Wednesday, if you waited till 12, it was actually Thursday, so you could drink again. I don't recommend this to anyone. As a result, I got either a 7 or an 8.3 GPA. My first semester, I was put on academic probation. And I came home over Christmas break, and my dad said, Joe, it's great that you're having a good time, but I want you to know why you're there. Remember why you're there. You're there to get education. And I took that, okay, whatever. I'll try better, Dad, And I went up there, and I said, and something inside me stuck. I said, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to drink anymore. It was the worst semester of college of my life. And the big book talks about that I can really identify with. It says a sense of ease and comfort that comes with taking a drink. I made the dean's list with a 3.8 second semester, but that was through I took classes like coaching football, coaching baseball. There were junk classes, and one of those classes was a baseball class, and it was on Fridays. Well, in the springtime, the guy, the coach or the teacher is one of the coaches, so he's gone half the time. So on the Thursdays I would be able to go out because there was no Friday class. I'd be standing in Winn-Dixie because they had some great specials. And there could be a line 20 people long. And as soon as I grabbed that beer, there was a sense of ease and comfort that came over me of everything's going to be all right. Now I get in a line at Hess or wherever, if there's 2 people in front of me, I'm mad. Why do I got to wait so long? Then, when I had that six-pack of beer in my hand, all's right in the world. And after that semester, I made a firm resolution myself not to go through that again. And I'd love to sit up here and tell you that I have this great story. My story is very boring. I drank a lot, and I don't drink anymore. I could sit down after that, but I'm sure you guys would love to hear my story. No. So the next 5 years of college, I fail out of 4 universities, and I don't have a nickel to my name. I'm driving my dad's car, living with my parents, and I get the only job I can get with my dad. And at this time, I'm too good to work in McDonald's, but I couldn't even get a job there. And I sit there and we're going through, and I get the job with my dad, and we go on. And at this time, I'm starting to burn a couple bridges. Nothing's extreme. I'm able to function somewhat. And my little sister, who I love her to death. And she came to me one night, and my parents had gone away on vacation, and I come home in a drunken stupor, and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. She wakes me up. She has tears in her eyes, and she goes, "Joe, I'm hurting. I don't know what to do. My back's killing me," and she's scared. And I tell her, and I roll over in a drunken stupor. I say, "What do you want me to do about it?" I said, "Leave me alone." And I roll back over. Now, I wish I could tell you that I said those words to her, but they were a lot harsher than that. And my parents had one of them interventions for me, and I'm sitting there, and, what broke me was I lost the respect of a 12-year-old girl. I couldn't handle alcohol. I couldn't handle life. My parents they said, "Joe, you got to go." My sister hates my guts. My brother doesn't want me. No one wants me. And I'm dying, and what I was driving a few days before that, I was driving home, and I get a thought of, "Joe, I can't stop." I'd always said to everybody, "Oh, I can stop when I want to." I still say that about Nicorette today. I can stop whenever I want to. That's how I felt, is I could stop anytime I want to. And for that brief second, I had a moment of clarity that said, "Joe, you can't stop. You cannot stop." And I'm here to tell you that was as far as I needed to go with alcohol. That's as much as I could take. When you lose the respect of everybody around you and no one wants you, that in a family that absolutely loves everybody, it's heartbreaking. And so I entered this 28-day treatment program, and I'm such a good student that 4.5 months later I walked out. Now, when you're in there, see, what happens is, though, when I'm in there 2 months, I start sitting there going, if I don't do anything, I'm not leaving. And so they said, "Get a sponsor." So I go to this meeting one night, and they set me up. And I go to this meeting, and they're like, "Hey, that's a good guy to ask to be your sponsor." And so I walk in there, and he goes, "Hey," I said, "Hey, it's like asking a girl on your first date. When you ask someone to be your sponsor, will you sponsor me? And I said, "Hey, my name's Joe." And before I can even say anything else, he goes, "Hey, my name's Jimmy. Nice to meet you. Here's my number. I'm your new sponsor." And I had been here 2 months, so I started hearing some slogans. And I thought, I didn't say this out loud, but I thought to myself, whoa, easy does it, First things first. And he said, "I want you to call me every day." And see, I call him every day, and I started working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, what happens is I started becoming active in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was showing up to meetings. I got involved in a fellowship. I started working some of the steps. And I get through step 7, and I get out of treatment, and I come up here, and it's great. When you work a couple steps, the obsession is going to leave you. When you work 4 and 5, the obsession is going to leave you for a little while. That's my experience. That's why it says there's precise instructions in that book of when to do steps. It says next. It says, remember, you're willing to go any length to maintain your sobriety. Well, what happened is when the heat's not on anymore, I no longer have that deep yearning desire to get better. And I start hearing stuff in Alcoholics Anonymous that I later learned was not Alcoholics Anonymous. I heard stuff like, just don't drink and go to meetings. Put the plug in the jug. And I'm sitting there going, you mean I don't have to do those steps up there? All right, you know. And then I heard a couple great lines. The group is my sponsor. Oh, for a guy like me, that's magic to my ears. When I hear stuff like that, I'm like, all right, I'll have that guy that's cheating on his wife. He's going to be my relationship advisor. The guy who's cheating on his taxes, that's my, financial advisor. You got the whole smorgasbord here. And I started listening to that. I stopped calling my old sponsor, and I started doing that. And then I heard the greatest line for a guy that's lazy. It's doing nothing is still doing something. And I was like, I'm busy all week. Don't bother me. Don't bother me. And I'm still going to 10 meetings a week. I'm going to 10 meetings a week and everything's great. But slowly but surely, something's happened inside me that I just don't understand. We at this time, my sister, she was graduating. And she got to write a paper about the person she admired most. And she wrote this, the girl that I rolled over and she didn't like me. She wrote a paper about the person she admired most, and she wrote it about me, right? And for a guy like me, that doesn't happen. That does not happen to me because I'm not looked up to, and she wrote it, and then she's going to graduation. On graduation night, my parents go pick up my grandmother, and she's not answering the door, and they look in, and and she's on the floor as she was gone, right? And I love the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous with all my heart. I love it to death because these people that barely knew me were coming to that funeral, and the best part about it was my sister, she was salutatorian of her class, and she got up there with all the dignity, grace, and integrity that I could only wish to have. And she gave a speech that was beyond my wildest dreams. To stand up there knowing what happened, was just absolutely amazing. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just in awe. And a few days later, I go to this funeral, and there's people of Alcoholics Anonymous there. In this, my youngest daughter, or my youngest sister, we just have a connection. I don't know what it is about us. And a few months later, she's leaving to go to college, and she goes to college, and my other grandma goes in for a routine surgery and 2 turns of 12, and she has a heart attack on the operating table. And then and I was working with a new sponsor at the time. I got a new sponsor, and we had started working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I got to tell you, about a few weeks before this, I can't understand what's wrong with me. I'm going to 10 meetings a week, like I said, and there's just something not right. And I'm sitting there going, well, I thought the Alcoholics Anonymous is the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought we're going to be all right. And I'm dying on the inside. What I learned is that the fellowship, it'll keep you sober for a while. But the steps are where it's at. The steps allow me to have this freedom from alcohol. And so I'm sitting here one night in my house, and I have this thought that I can't do this anymore. And having a bottom drunk is one thing, but when you're stone cold sober and alcohol no longer works for you, and Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't work for you, you ain't got nowhere else to go. And you're going to experience a loneliness that you will never know. You can't imagine. And I'm sitting there going, if this is AA, this sucks. This is terrible. And I got a knife in my hand. I'm ready to slit my throat or wrist. It doesn't matter. And I said that my first honest prayer in Alcoholics Anonymous was, God, please help me. God, please help me. And I put the knife down and went to bed, and I didn't drink. And I got that guy to be my sponsor. And he took me through this stuff rapidly. And, when my grandmother died, my sister called me up and she goes, Joe, I need you to come up here. She was at Florida State. She goes, I need you to come up here. This is on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And it's about 11 o'clock. And I dropped everything. And I go up to see her because my sponsor told me, for the first time in your life, son, you're going to be a son to your mom and dad. You're going to be a brother to your brothers and sisters. You're going to be a nephew to your niece or aunts and uncles. You're going to start participating in their lives. You don't want them to worry about you. And so I went up there and I got her and I came back down with her, and I was a participant in my parents' life. And no longer did they have to worry about Joe. Where's Joe? What's he doing? Where's he at? They just said, he's right there. And the people of Alcoholics Anonymous were there too. And I caught fire with this thing. And magical stuff happened. Some people call, there are a few, I'm going to try not to get on my soapboxes tonight. I'm a big book thumper. I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It saved my life. And when I got that, the only thing wrong with being a big book thumper is sometimes when I caught fire with this thing, I took this book and shoved it down your throat. I'd be in a meeting and I'd have my big book in hand and I'd sit there and hear someone spew off some stuff and I'd say, oh, I don't know what your big book says, but my big book says this. And what I learned from a lot of people was, the message is the message. It's how you present it, and things started happening in my life beyond my wildest dreams. That's why every meeting I go to is a celebration of Alcoholics Anonymous. These meetings should be pep rallies for Alcoholics Anonymous on how good my life is today. And when I was about 5 months sober, I saw a guy speak, and he was some big-time circuit speaker, and I had no idea what that was. And we were down in Tampa, and I saw this guy that had to be 140 years old. No joke. He had like 87 years of sobriety. And I'm like, this guy has nothing in common with me. I said, however, he was dressed in a suit and tie. And I said, man, at least he looks good. I didn't hear anything that guy said, but I knew he dressed good. And that's why I wear a suit and tie up here tonight. My sponsor said, Joe, you may not always sound sober, so at least look sober. This guy was very mean to me, and what he taught me how to grow up. He taught me how to be a participant, because there are a lot of people in here that seen me when I first came in. And when I first came in, I had a hat that was a little crooked. I wore sweatpants, a ripped T-shirt, and he came up to me one day. This guy's, I hope he doesn't hear this. But no, he knows. He came up to me one day. He goes, Joe, you're an AA now. Dress like it. And I said, okay. And then he had the audacity to say, Joe, hey, if you need some clothes, let's go to Salvation Army and we'll go pick you up some clothes. And I'm like, what do you think? I can't afford my own clothes? What this guy taught me was that I have to dress up and look the part, because, a lot of people aren't going to hear what I say, but they're going to see how I act, and I got excited about this thing. And, I was sitting there and a couple years ago, and I'd gone on the website where I went to go to middle school, and I was looking at them, seeing if I knew anybody that posted on there, and I saw this girl who I had dated in 6th grade. We were each other's first kiss, And I wrote her an email. I said, hey, you want to, it was great. I don't know if you remember me. And she, I set it up, and she goes, of course I remember you. You were my first kiss, And she goes, do you want to go out sometime and have a beer? I said, funny story. How about some ice cream? I said, how about some ice cream? And she goes, okay. So we go have ice cream, and and we didn't get together that night. And a few months later, we lost contact for a few months. And a few months later, she calls me up and she said, hey, you want to go out to eat sometime? I said, sure. I wasn't doing nothing. I was like, sure. when do you want to go? She goes, how about tomorrow? I said, okay. So I go over, and she lives in Dade City, which is like 120 miles from here. It takes about 8 hours. But I go there, and we have dinner, and I'm not thinking nothing of it. And we get out, and I was like, all right, I gotta go home to work. And she gives me a hug that was just a little too long. And let me tell you something. Like I said before, I am horrible when it comes to catching signs with girls and stuff like that. It's just terrible. And she can vouch for me on that. And she gave me a hug, and I caught a sign, and I fell head over heels in love with this girl. And about 5 months later, because anything worth doing is worth going all out. So we start dating in like October and February. Well, we're flying all around the country, and things are great in my life. I mean, business is going great. I'm single, I'm not drinking, and it's phenomenal. And I start dating her, and we're flying over, and for Valentine's Day, I'm like, let's go to Vegas. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. And let me tell you something, I got hot at the dice table. It was phenomenal. And I ended up winning a lot of money, and, about 8 weeks later, she comes in, and she's got tears in her eyes. And she goes, I was making something for dinner, and she comes in, she comes storming by me. And I'm sitting there cooking dinner, and she's like, aren't you going to talk to me? I'm like, oh, and she's got tears coming down her eyes. I'm like, what's this about? And she goes, Joe, I'm pregnant. And I was like, well, how many tests did you take? And she goes, this is the third one. I was like, well, shouldn't you take another one? What I later learned was there's no false positives, And you could tell she was worried, and a feeling came over me of, I love this girl to death. And so we went back to Las Vegas, and we got married, and 4 months later, we're going to deliver this little girl. And, we go there, and 3 hours turns to 3.5. My wife spikes 103 fever on the operating table, and they take the forceps out, and they get out my daughter. And my wife's holding her, and she turns purple. She's not breathing. And they rush her off to NICU, and I've heard a lot of things of, except for a few brief moments, I really had nothing to do with this kid. Not a girl carries them for 9 months, and I mean, you guys are absolutely special. Women, God had a good day when he made you ladies, I have to tell you. And I'm sitting there, and I go, and I can't touch this little girl, and I go to NICU, and I fall head over heels in love with this girl. And I sit there and say to myself, I step back, and I say, God, if you'll let her live, please take me. And as soon as I said that, I said, what did you say? See, I'm selfish and self-centered to the extreme. I think about no one but myself. And here I am caring more about this little girl than I do about myself. Alcoholics Anonymous gave me that. About 16 months later, we're going, and everything was fine with her, and she gets out of NICU. And 16 months later, we're going to get another, now I'm getting my baby boy. And he comes out, everything was great, and the last thing the doctor says is, you might want to get his ear checked out. And I'm like, ooh, I didn't even notice. And he has this thing called microsia, which is a little ear, and he's deaf in one ear. And I'm sitting there going, if that's all this child gets in his life, it's a pretty good life. And I'm going to tell you what acceptance, because I hear acceptance talked about a lot in the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what acceptance means to me is, I don't accept the fact that that kid has something wrong with his ear until I have exhausted every effort on my part to make it better. So I go to a doctor, I go to 2 doctors, say, hey, what is this? And they tell me what it is. So then we go up online and read about it. And then I find out there's nothing we can do till he's 5 years old. Now, since there's nothing I can do, now I can accept it, and it's all right. And when that bridge comes, when he's 5 years old, we'll be all right to talk about it, and I'll come to that bridge when I cross it. these two little kids, for a guy like me, these two little kids at 5:30 when I come home from work, they come run up to me and give me big hugs and kisses. And they have now my son's getting into like headbutting me, but they have this look in their eye of this is my daddy and this is my hero. For a guy like me who never got looked up to or anything like that, to have these two little kids, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's no yelling in my house today. These kids haven't seen a fight, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I'm trying to sit here and tell you how thankful I am for Alcoholics Anonymous and everything you've ever done. How can I sit here and if Alcoholics Anonymous gave me, when I came in here, all I wanted was a good night's sleep and to not drink again. And if that's all I got out of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd still be sitting here saying thank you. Thank you for the wonderful time in my life. Thank you for the 7 years that have been just absolutely wonderful. But it's given me so much more. It's given me a wife it's given me the ability to be a husband. I found a girl that wanted to marry me and have my kids. It's given me 2 kids that look up to me with all the glitter in their eyes, and I smile all the time because, I'm overpaid. I'm overpaid. I'm so glad God's grace is so undeserving. Because for a guy like me, that doesn't happen. And I'm here to tell you tonight that Alcoholics Anonymous, as laid out in the first 164 pages, will work for absolutely anyone, anywhere, under any circumstances. It doesn't matter what you've done or what you haven't done. It doesn't matter where you've been or where you haven't been. If you work these steps to the best of your ability, you will never drink again, and that's a guarantee. And it will allow you to participate in your life and other people's lives. I want to thank you for my life. My kids want to thank you for my life. My dad wants to thank you for my life. And my wife wants to thank you for my life. Thank you.